Here.
Chang and Fang.
Here.
Yeah.
Hannaford Riley.
Here.
Chavez and Gordon.
Here.
Ellingson Nash. Till Saturday. Well, Sunday when we'll have transfers, but Saturday will be our last day together. So, how will this do? Ljubljana is really worth visiting. So,
Is that the castle we're going? That's a castle job.
Castle, the island, here to the right.
Hello.
What the weather is going to be like, so that's the only trick. But otherwise, it doesn't have a center of the town like. Okay, so no Ljubljana, no. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Pork roast or
Yeah, the other one is too, so it's got it.
church, ringing the bells, early morning. Ljubljana dinner? Yeah. Hear us? Yeah. So from the beginning of the 11th century on, property of the bishops of Brunson. What happened? Talk more about history later on when we drive towards Zagreb, towards. To the right where the lady was sweeping. To the right side it says multi-division. To the left are the restrooms. If you need to use them in one set of the restrooms is also on the lower floor. So generally the upper courtyard was used for living while the lower floor was really
Yeah, 我们就说，哎，有个 chair 跟 fan 怎么不在？
From here you have this nice beautiful view of the home lived area and that what you see over there is the only Slovenian.
中国人啊。Yeah.
Only. We have a couple of islands on the rivers, but beside that this is transformed into Romanesque. It's followed the natural development of the architectural style throughout the history. We know that beside Baroque we have one more which is called Rococo. Well, that's even a bit more, how would you say, fancy, crying out, ornate. Yes. So, on the island there are two bell towers. The bigger one was built to people, the bigger one was built in the 15th century, Gothic style, and then rebuilt in Baroque style. Whilst we have the small bell tower, you see it on the church? A really small one.
Years ago, the glaciers last extended from both poles of the Earth far into the interior of the continents and covered all the major mountains. The ice that collected in the Julian Alps slid towards the foothills along the valleys of the rivers Solcha and Sava. The ice flowed the underlying surface as it flowed, forming the characteristic U-shaped glacial valley. At At the climax of the last Pleistocene cold period, the Bochum Glacier covered the entire region of Bled, including all the lesser heights. It extended almost all the way to Lesce and Radolica and pushed the course of the river Savadolinka somewhat to the east. The tundra and taiga in the vicinity of the glacier were the habitats of bison, mammoths, elk, deer, wolves, and alpine marmots. However, the last Pleistocene cold period was not the coldest. In its greatest extent, the Bochum Glacier also covered a considerable where the crests of two terminal moraines are quite visible, now the site of the churches at Zasip and Sibenia. To melt, the stream of Rečica carved a channel through the deposits, uncovering the succession of layered sediments that were deposited during the period of damming. The Ice Age was very turbulent in climatic terms. In cold periods, the glaciers became longer, and in warm periods they shortened or melted. When advancing, the glacier pushes and accumulates gravel from its base, which piles up in front of it in the form of ridges called terminal or end moraines. Traces of the first two were formed at Jezernica near Mlino. The lake in its present form is most probably somewhat less than 14,000 years old. The climate continued to warm up and became increasingly similar to that of the present day. The ice quickly melted and first retreated to the high mountains and then disappeared completely. When this glacial support was removed, avalanches and rockfalls tumbled down the slopes. Glaciifluvial or basal river terraces are also related to the climate changes, as they were both deposited and incised by rivers along the former glacial valleys. In cold climatic periods, the rivers deposited large quantities of gravel, while during warm periods they eroded this away. Terraces formed in this manner are visible between Chauvetz and Lesce. They were formed by the river Sava, which encircles the Bled region with a deeply incised bed. All in all, just like Eden, wrote the Slovenian poet Prešeren. Bled was first mentioned in written sources in AD 1004 and Bled Castle in 1011. The phrases, the property called Bled, located in the province called Corniola, and Bled Castle, were written in Latin in the deed with which the German king Henry II granted the Bled estate to the diocese of Brixen. Bled Castle became the administrative centre for the landed property of the bishopric of Brixen in Upper Carniola. The appearance of the original castle of Bled is unknown. Comparisons with other 11th century structures indicate that it was most probably a dwelling structure, a palace with a courtyard enclosed by a wall. A graveyard was located beneath the castle. Several decorative buckles were found there, one with a depiction of a ruler and another with an image of the Lamb of God, which was also present on the coat of arms of the Brixen diocese. For more than 300 years, the manor house was administered by the diocesan ministerials, who were often named after Bled. Probably in the 12th century, a chapel was built in the courtyard of the castle, along with an exterior rampart. Another palace was probably constructed in the 13th century. The medieval building heritage has not been greatly preserved. Partly surviving elements include the walls and the entrance tower with a Romanesque lateral portal. The centre of the entire region where society of that time met, as people of different status and callings came on various errands and tasks. This was the period when the second palace and Gothic chapel were built. Bled was visited in 1458 by the Bishop of Brixen, Nicolaus Cusanus, a cardinal, theologist and philosopher, one of the greatest thinkers of the 15th century. He endeavoured to undertake the renovation of Bled Castle when he saw that it was in poor condition. The earthquake of 1511 damaged the castle badly, and shortly afterwards renovation began, as is indicated by the preserved plans. The Bled estate also experienced unrest, complaints from peasants, real peasant uprisings, and the penetration of Protestant ideas. The Bible was translated into Slovenian at this time as the 16th language. The first graphic representations of the landscape in the castle were made in 1679 and 1689. After the earthquake in 1690, the castle was rebuilt again. These structures are still mostly preserved today. The chapel was also rebuilt and painted in the Baroque style. Social reforms in the second half of the 18th century freed the serfs from their feudal obligations. After the abolishment of serfdom in 1848, Brixen was no longer interested in Bled and sold the estate. The castle edifice lost its original function as a feudal seat. In the 19th century, the picturesque castle on its cliff and the island in the middle of the lake with the surrounding scenery became the greatest tourist attractions in Slovenia, and Bled became the political and national symbol of Slovenian identity. After the Second World War, the castle was nationalized and declared a cultural monument. The castle was fully restored in 1951 to 1961, making it an attractive and popular destination with panoramic views, and the interior was transformed into a museum.